Hello, my name is Michaela Bradshaw. I am a freshman at the University of Texas at San Antonio. We live in a society where education is the defining basis of the quality in a person, sadly. Today I would like to talk about the issue of inequality between schools, the underpayment of teachers, and the fact that young people are being deprived of the chance at proper and quality education. This is going to be the outline for my presentation. First, I'm going to introduce the topic, give a few quick facts about funding, and then briefly address the image shown. Then I'm going to be discussing the causal argument of the issue, more specifically, the consequences of funding schools and the benefits of funding schools. Next, I will address the proposal argument, which entails obtaining school funding and the steps we need to take for education reform. This argument will lead into my next subtopic, which will be teacher walkouts. With that, what are the motives behind walkouts and the legalities of it? Alongside this, I'm going to discuss a case between San Antonio Independent School District and a concerned parent. After that, I will discuss both sides of the funding and who is against who. Finally, I will dive into my conclusion, and that will be the end. So first, I'm going to introduce the topic. I would like to start with the fact that funding for K-12 schools is at the lowest and continues to remain below pre-recession levels. Also, this era of inequality is affecting our school the most. This quote, 28 seats, 44 students, 90 degrees, and 0 books is the case for most classrooms in this society. They are overpopulated, there's poor school upkeep, and absolutely no books. We will see the effect of this later in the presentation. Now, for the causal argument. Consequences of providing more funding for schools. It is difficult to find a new source of funding. If the new funding came from a different tax, people with kids who aren't in school would be angry. The government only funds about 8 to 9%, and most of that contributes to free or reduced lunch. Now, the benefits of providing more funding for schools is better mental health programs on campus, poorer schools will have higher success rates, up-to-date textbooks, STEM lectures, college and career counseling, and technology access. It is proven that students who live in a low-income area and attend a school in that area have lower success rates than students who attend a nicer school. Thus, more school funding will provide equality between the two areas and give low-income students a better chance. So what happens now? This is where the proposal argument comes in. The first step would be obtaining the funding. The idea of school funding needs to be shifted from financing education itself to the idea that education is an investment and funding should be directed towards quality of schools and educational opportunities. Education and child welfare programs should be fully funded. States should restore and exceed the pre-recession level funding. The next steps would be to provide additional resources that accommodate to the students, and these need to be provided to all schools regardless of the income. Additional funding for schools will attract better teachers and provide better programs in the schools. Funding should be directed at raising student achievement and providing equality across all income areas. What happens when teachers are fed up with poor treatment? Walkouts. As seen in the screenshot, this is a recurring phenomenon, and I took it upon myself to observe why. The first teacher walkout in the United States occurred on February 22, 2018 in West Virginia. The teachers were protesting low wages and rising healthcare costs. Since then, teachers all around the country have been fighting for more than just higher wages. They've been fighting for increased spending, more support for teachers, and pension issues. 11 states total have had teacher walkouts. In West Virginia, Kentucky, and Oklahoma, 3 of the states with teacher walkouts, it is against the law for public school teachers to go on strike. It is illegal in 3/5 of the states to go on strikes if you are a public school teacher. Now, what happens when parents are fed up with the unfair gap education? In the case of San Antonio ISD versus Rodriguez, school funding systems in Texas are based heavily off local property tax in addition to minimal state funding. Parents of the San Antonio Independent School District argued that students who live in poorer areas are being affected negatively. The ruling cited that the funding system was not wrong because it did not intentionally discriminate against a certain class of people. So now we are able to draw the two different sides of the argument, who is against who. Those for better school funding will obviously be parents of students who live in low-income areas, teachers, and education advocates. Those not for better school funding or think that the school funding is okay would be the government, higher income areas, and those who are paying local property tax, which provide schools with the only other source of funding. Most of the time, the issues will be between parents and the state. In conclusion, funding for schools needs reform. This reform should be aimed more towards the quality of education and attracting more qualified teachers. It should provide more programs in order for students to succeed better, and it should minimize the funding gap between low-income and high-income areas. There also needs to be reform for teacher support. It is becoming less appealing for someone to want to become a teacher because of how little they are being supported and how little they are being paid. So much so that in this rising economy, it is becoming nearly impossible to live off of only a teacher's salary. This is my Works Cited page. Thank you for listening. I hope this was information that you already knew or info that gave you deeper perspective on education reform.